Good evening. It's 7 p.m. on August 22nd. Can we convene the open session of the Select Board by starting with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody here for public comment?
Yeah. Press the button right in the middle of the mic. It should be green.
It should be green. State your name and address, please.
You're on then.
My name is Stephen Cholosis, 92 Spring Hill Road.
Yes, sir.
The land before discussion on Quaker Road, though noted as 305R Quaker Meeting House Road, is special for significant historic and visitor value. Under the delimited three-part metric used by Natural Resource and Conservation of the land, understandably, and I had a long discussion with David Conto, does not fall into a category of purchase. However, on the hill, standing literally at the edge of the glacial run of Spring Hill, one views Twin Ponds, Discovery Hill, and other pleasant scenes. The land has been under 61A, so it is under 5 acres, and is not a farm for grain production for some time. A way to offer an aesthetic win for the town and a financial win for the buyers is to switch over to a 61B recreation status. The necessary contiguous 5 acres would be achieved, making the property reach the standard under Chapter 61. The buyers could cut in a tiny trail edged away from their open meadow and could limit hours to 7. This would still provide the public with an opportunity to enjoy a pleasing vista at the southern end of Spring Hill, where farmers, Quakers, and Native Americans all attract. Parking could be rendered a virtual non-issue by arranging a friendly agreement with the Friends Meeting House. The buyers already have on their property the original unmarked Quaker cemetery, and thus a natural, positive, pre-existing connection between them exists. The buyers have already made a generous aesthetic contribution to the town in terms of their work on the Lower Sham boathouse, returning it to its architectural glory. Were the buyers in town to forge such an agreement, this would be yet another fine community contribution helping to preserve value, vista, history of this special area.
Thank you. Okay. Review and approval of minutes of August 8th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted from August 8th of this year.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Town manager report.
Just a few items tonight. Our next meeting is a slightly more delayed than usual because of Labor Day week. So it's Thursday, September 12th at 7 in this room. If we happen to need a meeting beforehand, the board's always accommodating about trying to get that scheduled. So if anything pops up, I'll let you know. Most of the other things that I was going to update on are later on in the agenda, but one I wanted to give you a quick update on. Through Dave Mason and our wastewater engineering firm, Wright Pierce, we've been working on the improvements that are going to be needed at the Sandwich High School treatment plant. So we got word this week that the design specs are about at the 95% review stage, which is great. So at this point, we're just trying to help them with some of the legal paperwork that will have to be in the RFP. and a few other things that we're checking on. But in terms of most of the technical work for the design specs, those are all set. And so in a perfect world, we'll be bidding those in mid-September with a pre-bid meeting towards late September and a bid opening. Filed sub-bids due the second week of October, and the full general bids due on October 23rd. That's the tentative schedule. Some of this work can take place immediately. Other work will have to wait till next summer. But it should be fully functioning with upgraded equipment by the time school starts next year, and then punch list items through the end of next calendar year. Well, within the time frame, as the board's aware, we have roughly $850,000 from the county ARPA funds to use towards this. It's going to be more expensive than that, but we already have funding to complete the rest of the work. So as that progresses, I'll let you know, but that's the tentative schedule. So I want to thank Dave and Wright Pierce, and the school's been supportive of getting the work done as well. And that's about it.
Great, thank you.
But on the way in tonight, the state put a sign up on Quaker Meeting House Road saying bridge work starting. So are we going to get the pipe?
We asked them to run conduit. They turned us down, so we appealed it, and we're just waiting to hear back from them. But it would be open conduit. Right now, where we don't have to connect Oak Ridge to the high school, it's less of a concern. Down the road, we'll have to look at that, but Paul Tilton did, send in an appeal request, just, asking them to reconsider.
So we had asked that they run the piping.
Exactly, just something that we could put the sewer piping in if we ever had to connect over the overpass.
Did they happen to mention what their concerns were?
It was a long letter, very technical, and I'd have to have it in front of me, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, correspondence, statements, announcements, future items, and follow-up.
But I was on the boardwalk the other morning and met the company guy looking for things. I guess they got it, we're doing it.
Yeah, I think they were down, the ACK, the general contractor, was doing some punch list items. Alan Pepin and Sam were down, double checking some of the work. We did get, someone reached out to us about the rusting of the mesh. It's never going to stay fully stainless steel. It did look like there were one or two sections that were worse than others, so I believe Alan's taking a look and was going to reach out maybe to have a couple sections replaced. But that's what I heard after the site visit.
Anybody else? Just a couple of quick ones I have, if you don't mind. August 14th, School Committee, the Colby Lippincott Memorial Wiffle Ball Tournament, hosted by the Sandwich Middle High School National Junior Honor Society on August 11th at Sandwich Middle High School, was very successful. Please be reminded, the proceeds will be used to create a memorial and a supplement to the scholarship fund. At the June 5th meeting of the school committee, Dr. Marushak related an effort would be made to move forward from harassment and bullying issues. With input from Sandwich Middle High School Principal Gene Nelson, a multifaceted discrimination, harassment, and bullying policy was presented and adopted as part of the new Student Family Handbook. Ratification of successor union contracts was accomplished. Progress in all regards. August 17th, Sandwich Boy Scout Troop 47 welcomed Jackson DiMalillo as the newest Eagle Scout. Congratulations, Jackson. August 19th, Bikeways and Pedestrian. An interesting thought to come out of this meeting is to develop a Sandwich Crosswalk Day in conjunction with October being designated as Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month. It seems Chairman Pole will be reaching out. Going forward, Sandwich Cares is holding their next meeting related to the opioid crisis on Tuesday, August 27th at 5 p.m. in the Sandwich Library. Sandwich for All will be gathering at Town Neck Beach parking lot at 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 29th, and hosting their annual bonfire. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Staff meeting, Town Clerk Taylor White and Human Resources Director Marie Buckner will present board and committee handbook and other documents for a planned September 17th session with Town Council Attorney Michelle Randazzo. Taylor, Marie, it's all yours.
All right. Did you all have an opportunity to do your homework on this?
Read all 40 pages.
All 40 pages? Yeah. So what this is an attempt to do, Marie and I have been working on this, is there are somewhere in the ballpark of 200 appointed officials, and the rest are obviously elected: school committee, board of health, board of selectmen, or select board. So we are trying to put together in Sandwich, a lot of other towns have already done this, just a comprehensive one-stop shop as it comes to, we call them public bodies now, that's the new term when it comes to all these elected and appointed boards. So Marie and I had put something together. We sort of took pieces from other towns, something that we already had pre-existing, put it into this neatly concise 40-page document. We put a lot of stuff in there. If you have an opportunity, I'll just go over it real briefly. It's basically just an introduction. So if someone were to be newly appointed or elected to a board or committee, they could read this and get a pretty good sense of what their roles and responsibilities are as an elected member, an appointed member of a public body here in Sandwich. So we wanted to try to make this as comprehensive as possible. There's a lot of inside baseball in this stuff, but basically it talks about appointed officials, elected officials, the responsibilities of each, duration of appointments or elected office, oaths of office, reminding people that when they get appointed or they're elected, they have to come down and get sworn in. A lot of people think that that's just kind of one of those things. It is something that you do have to take the oath of office. It's important, but one of the reasons that we impress that they need to come down and get sworn in is because we need to provide them with our obligated material that they need to get, and this is going to be the main meat of that now. So when people say, "Oh, I got to go to the clerk's office and get sworn in," come on down. We need to get your email address, your phone number. We need to get all that stuff just so we have contact information for you. So it's more than just taking your oath. This talks about leadership, how you organize your committee, attendance, if you were to resign from a public body, how you do that. It also talks about some of the meat and potatoes when it comes to agenda postings and meeting minutes and how we're expecting those to come through. Revising agendas. This is the first probably 10 pages is how we're expecting public bodies to interact with our office. Dealing with executive sessions, deliberations, what is a public record, meeting minutes in draft form, those types of things. And then there's some examples as far as how you post your agendas. Then the rest of it is pretty much language that has come from the state, a summary of the conflict of interest law and a summary of the open meeting law, both of which is required to be signed off or is received when you become a member of a public body. There's also some other documentation. In here, I believe you're going to put the long-range plan in here. Is that what we're?
It's going to be separate.
Okay. We're going to have a couple other things that are helpful to people who are going to be dealing with the stuff that the town's officials have come up with long-range plan. There's also some other information in here about anti-discrimination policy. What was the other one? The select board, the select board statement. Yeah, the code of conduct. So the stuff that you guys have approved over the years that we're including in this. So while it is 40 pages double-sided, we try to make it as concise as possible. We're hoping on the 17th of September?
Yes.
To do, as much as we can require it. We're going to try to get as many as appointed and elected officials, hopefully in this room, as possible, to have some questions answered by town council. We'll have an opportunity to pass this out. We just feel like the more that people are educated on what their roles and responsibilities are, the smoother it works. And my office was happy because we bear the brunt of a lot of it with the meeting postings and meeting minutes and those types of things. So we wanted to make sure we were involved in this. So this document is being reviewed by town council right now for any discrepancies that might exist. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I think they're going to have no problem with it. But we want to make this sort of a formal thing that you guys would look at. approve, and then moving forward, if we had to make changes to it, we could, but this is going to be sort of the main handout that we're going to give to people moving forward. So we wanted to make sure you had review of it. Any questions?
Got one. On the guidelines for individuals speaking at public meetings.
Yes.
Is this based on that new law that, I mean, I don't know if it's a law or not, but that issue that came up with the town manager in another town and went to court, and it was found to be a violation, ethics violation. And I know that it was a handout from KP Law or something that came down.
Yes.
Is this based on that?
Yes, it is.
All right, good.
I
So
think,
this is always changing. There's always things that are coming down. So the portion, some of the portions of summaries here, the summary of the conflict of interest and summary of the open meeting law, we'll be able to supplement those in and out of this packet. It's nothing that you need to necessarily approve, but a lot of it would be just be approving what the content, as far as the attachments are concerned, and then some of the first, I'd say, 10 or 11 pages is sort of our in-house direction to boards and committees.
This is a lot of good work. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, for those of you at home that don't have the packet in front of you, you know, it's a good roadmap for, you know, as Taylor was saying, for all the people in town that volunteer or elected positions, because you'd be surprised how many times these conflicts come up, and it's, you know, it's good to have a policy handbook to go back to, which we've had, and we've had to use previously. I mean, in the last year, I think we've had to go back, and it's not just people in Sandwich. I mean, there's people, you know, we can say that they call themselves concerned citizens that literally watch these meetings to find an open meeting law violation to just be a nuisance. And it's happened, you know, in recent past.
So this will help, this hopefully help just get everyone on the same page. And while a lot of it, I think a majority of public body members know, there's probably some that just aren't familiar. We're always getting new people in, so we just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Doing this in-person session with KP Law is good. You know, there's some of these things, they do the Zoom meetings and they do the seminars. Having face-to-face interaction with someone and being able to answer specific questions is going to be key. So we're going to encourage, I mean, you guys as the Board of Selectmen, you're 85% of these public bodies are your appointees. So I think we're going to be working on trying to get as many of them as possible. The elected officials, I mean, you would hope that they would also step up and attend the meeting and educate themselves on it. But it's all about information, and, you know, while the cynic in me tells me no one's going to read this, but we're going to give it to you and hopefully you go through it. But it is a lot of information.
Well, not to be repetitive, but it's a terrific effort, and it'd be to our own not benefit not to read it.
Yeah, you want to take people, and there's some of the stuff that people have received, you know, bits and pieces of this over the years, but we're going to encourage people when they get this to sit down, you know, some evening, just go through it. Maybe a lot of it, you know, maybe some goes, oh, I didn't know this portion of it.
Right.
And it's a guide. The clerk's office is always open for questions. When people, you know, we get questions every day, multiple times a day from people about how this operates. So this is not the end all, but it's a resource, it's a tool. Call our office if you have any follow-up questions, or they can always, you know, go through their appointing authority if it's a legal question and have KP Law answer those questions. Or
So if and when we adopt this, every person that works, volunteers, or from all over the town will get this.
yeah, so the process will be simply when there's the annual appointment process, which captures a large percent. You know, there's staggered terms, but so moving forward, anyone who gets sworn in for an elected or appointed position will receive a copy of this, and we'll bulk distribute it at that event on the 17th.
The session on the 17th, is there a projected starting time?
I don't have that. Bud was talking to KP Law.
Yeah, I think we're waiting for Michelle to confirm her availability for that day, but that was the last time we all had a Zoom meeting with her. That was the date that we were looking at. She's on vacation this week, so my guess is we'll hear early next week. As Taylor and Marie mentioned, she's reviewing this. We don't think there'll be many, if any, comments, but obviously if she has a couple changes, we'll make sure we do them. And I think it's important to point out, you know, Marie was sure to add the anti-discrimination, anti-harassment policy, the respect statement that the board adopted, and acceptance, and then also the code of conduct that you recently updated. So those will all be in this. And then we're also going to give out separate handouts on that social media advisory we got from Copeland and Page, and the long-range plan, which includes the board's vision statement and your mission statement. And then Marie and Tara are putting together, nice packets for everyone who comes. They'll get a nice binder or a folder with everything in it. So,
We were trying to connect the importance of following the rules as they, this, I guess the point is that this is a document that's hopefully going to allow people to understand their responsibility as an appointed and elected official to the bigger purpose of the town, and that their comportment at a public meeting and representing the town, it comes with parameters of behavior that is expected. And I don't think that we've made that connectivity before, and this is, like Bud just said, combining all of those documents together in one place so that there's one place to look at what is my expectation, what should I be doing as an appointed member of a board, and what does my behavior have to look like, and how do I have to comport myself in that meeting. So I think that it was our attempt to kind of bring everything together, not only the technical agenda posting, minutes of meetings and running of a meeting, but also the behavior as well.
and I think we're checking if this room is available, and then also the Center for Active Living. We forget we have that great new room with even better AV capabilities than here, so that it might be where we end up going. So we'll take a look at
This
that.
doesn't cover everything. I mean, there's certain technical things like maybe as a member of the Board of Health would need to know, or Conservation Commission, but those are things that'll happen internally. But it's fairly comprehensive. It's good. We're going to post it on the website too. So not only it's available to everyone in town. So the people, the residents of Sandwich can also look at this and know what to expect from their elected and appointed officials as well. So we're going to make it as public as possible.
I always make the statement, there are no secrets. We have no secrets.
It's there. Everyone can see it. So I appreciate that. Hopefully, KP Law will come back within, before the 17th, and then you would ask you guys just to approve it, and then that would be kind of an official record. We'll put it in here, approved by whatever date you guys do, and then we'll start the distribution shortly after.
I would say even if you wanted to approve it tonight, contingent on any changes town council might make, because it's going to take a while to put a couple hundred of these packets together, so.
I don't have a problem with it. It was very well done.
Is there a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve the Human Resource Committee, Board and Committee Handbook, and other documents as approved by Town Council, if any changes need to be made there.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0.
All right, well,
Thank you very much.
We'll just wait the edits, and then we'll start distributing it. So thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you both, thank you.
But this is interesting. Anyway, I know we've run into this, so I just was thinking about it when we see a formal policy handbook. Violations of this.
Yes, so in the code of conduct, there used to be a violation section, and the board at the time decided we should take that out. That's what's hard. I think I'm stealing line for John Giorgio. There's no such thing as like the charter police or the handbook police, but if something comes up, I think as staff, we would try to work with that committee to try to correct any behaviors or.
My thoughts were that a couple of times in my 7 years, it came down to a point of what authority do we have to remove a person
Yeah.
that we've appointed? And I know it references something in here about that,
Yep.
but we should really hone in on that at some point.
Yes.
Find out what we can actually do. Do we have the authority to remove somebody on a vote?
I know when we've checked in the past, I think you have to do a show cause hearing, so you would have to invite the person to come to a hearing and, sort of unfortunately have to do it in public. The few times that we've had those issues, many times, well, there haven't been many times, but those where there have been instances, several have been based on just people no longer showing up for the meeting, and thankfully, every time we've been able to convince them, even when we've written the letter for them to resign, and they've always done that.
Because it does address that, not showing
Yeah,
up.
yep.
Be able to bring it to the board, and the board can
Yeah.
move them. But I just thought that there's probably more of a due process in there.
There is, but it's also important why a lot of your appointments should be annual and not just,
Right.
for 5 years, so.
It's always the case when when you actually
Right.
form a solid policy and everybody's supposed to live by it. But then you start saying, well, what happens if somebody doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the case.
Okay?
So Shane, you better show up.
That's right.
Anybody else? Fine job. Fine job. Thank you. Old business. Sale of property with agricultural tax lien 305R Quaker Meeting House Road.
Yeah, so for just further backup, because this was on the agenda 2 weeks ago, the question that arose then was the question about the parcel being less than 5 acres and how could it still have that restriction on it. So that lien that was there for agricultural purposes, Shane was correct. In hindsight, when that bigger piece was broken off years ago, it should have lost that capability. What's happening now is there's a proposed sale back to the person who bought the bigger piece before, so it would be contiguous. So it would exceed the 5 acre threshold. In speaking with Ben Steitch, it's typically incumbent on the property owner to let us know that they're still doing the agricultural uses. I think there's a question about that now, and so we will definitely follow up if the property does change hands. And I think as the member from the public stated earlier, if that owner wanted to entertain, there are other tax restrictions and liens that could be put on a property, including reserving some space for public access to surrounding areas. Again, that's not something that we can impose, but it's something that the property owner could consider. The abutting piece, I believe, is greater than 6 acres, so contiguous, it's a large piece of land. The planning board voted, I believe, Tuesday night to say that they were waiving the right of first refusal, similar to the vote that has been recommended here, just because there's not an intent for the town to buy the property.
Are they not actively farming this parcel or the one next to it?
I mean, we've heard conflicting things, so I don't know. I know on the larger parcel, there's not a restriction on that. That's fully assessed.
So if this goes into the larger parcel, does it then hit the tax roll as regular? Or are they trying to retain?
Yeah. My understanding is one of the owners told the planning board that they did not intend on continuing an agricultural use. So at that point, it would get assessed like a normal property unless they wanted to entertain some other type of tax restriction
And the
or
abutting,
public use.
so and then my other question is the abutting neighbor need this parcel to get a certain acreage to do something drastically different with
Yeah.
the land?
I don't believe so, because they're already above that threshold now if they wanted to, yeah.
I don't have a problem. And as far as, if in fact somebody screwed up way back when, there's no recourse to collect back.
Yeah, you can't go back.
Like that.
Yep.
So if anybody in the public says, you know,
Right.
why don't you get something back? We can't do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were times the property was being actively used for agricultural purposes, and I think fairly recently, the smaller piece.
Well, the bog in front, which is not that property, but is overgrown now. It hasn't been used for years, but that wasn't part of that.
Do we, and this just leads me to, because this came up in this conversation, but do we have somebody that's actively looking at the parcels of land that are designated as agricultural. Did we do an inspection on those?
Yeah, I'll have to check with Ben on that. I believe they have to file that lien with the assessors every year, but I will check to see what sort of inspection happens.
So what do you need from us tonight?
I think it would just be to say that, we're waiving the right of first refusal to purchase the property.
Make a motion to approve the sale of the property with an agricultural tax lien at 305R Quaker Meeting House Road as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
And just as was requested earlier, we could, approach, or just let the seller and the buyer know that, they have that opportunity if they want for other types of liens, if they would grant public access certain times for that land. And that would have to be at least 5 acres, just Ben was clear about that.
A natural resource aspect.
Yes, yep.
Yes, understood, right? Okay. Okay. New legislature language for Bill S. 2861, new annual liquor license request.
So this relates back to the town meeting vote that authorized some additional liquor licenses for seasonal, I believe it was mostly all alcohol and a couple of beer and wine uses. So as it's worked its way through the legislature, which has been a pretty slow process, recently the attorney for the legislature has redrafted the language, quite similar to what it was before, but they now have said they want a formal vote from the select board saying we're okay with the revised language before they will sort of process the special act and sort of get it moving again. There are no promises on how long it will take to get adopted and if this will speed things up, but it seemed pretty clear unless we vote to accept this, it's going to die a natural death. So
what were the changes, bud? Do you?
it was just, if you remember, I think, I wish I had the original vote at town meeting in front of me. I think we had it in 2 different sections, and they cut it down to 1 section. Plus, we had to be specific not only in terms of the location, but also the business that was there. Already, one of the people that had one of those seasonal licenses has since moved out of town, but we were able to keep that location on here, so we made sure that was okay. And the other thing they asked us about is we wanted to have some flexibility on when the licenses could be granted. And I believe they've given us an ability up to 3 years, once it's approved, to grant those licenses, which would give time for, if there's a change in property ownership, to be able to work that out. And then I believe language was added as well by town council that said any language that was issued within 3 years, could be given to a new applicant as long as it was originally granted during that first 3-year window. Because that was one of our fears, that if the property changes hands, if it's tied to the owner, then we couldn't transfer it even though that location had it.
Who has reviewed this besides us?
Internally, Melissa's taken the closest look at it, and then town council reviewed the language a while ago.
Now, some of these, I looked at the list of, one of the companies is no longer here.
Yeah, like the pizza place is the one that's moved to Plymouth.
Dunbar got the license, correct?
I can't remember if they got an
They
all alcohol year round. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that would really take 2 of them off the list.
Yeah. But I think we want the location, at least of the pizza place, if they'll allow it.
But does that affect them in any way?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. good voting for it, because we gotta keep this thing moving forward. I just don't know if you need to make if at some point, but if we have to, maybe, one of the attorneys just review whether or not we should do an amendment to that, so it doesn't go through saying we approve these for, a company that's not there anymore, and I know, but he's listed the address in the first paragraph.
We let them know that the company had relocated, and I think this was the language they came up with to at least keep the address there.
Okay.
So this is really certifying the address for a license.
And hopefully give us that flexibility
Within
if
3
it
years.
changes hands down the road, yeah. And we have 3 years to do it, to grant them.
And there's no guarantee this legislation will be passed in the near future anyway.
No, nope. And I keep stressing the most important one is that wastewater article. That's 2 years old now, and it hasn't gone through. It's really frustrating. So every time I talk to them about anything, Heather and I both say, that's far and away the most important thing we have. Please make sure that proceeds, and it hasn't, so.
And the way this was written, since it was identified as addresses, if no one uses it, we don't get the license, so it's gone.
I think if we have not issued it within the 3 years of the
Yes.
vote, it goes away. So we don't have that right anymore. But as long as we issue it within the 3 years, if a new owner comes in,
Yeah.
you don't have to, but you would have the right to transfer it.
We don't have to, so as long as they meet the standard requirements,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can feel comfortable with it.
yeah. We could turn them all down. It's just-
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to see in the long run how this works.
Yeah. Well, I remember having the conversation with the state, and they said, well, how many liquor licenses are you looking for? And I said, 100. Like, why not? Ask for a million, right?
Boston's looking
I say the only reason we're doing this is because there are those restrictions at the state level that hold you back, for lack of a better word.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the new legislature language for Bill S. 2861, the new annual liquor license request as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Town Hall Annex, public outreach effort.
Yeah, this was, we've been speaking about the annex some in executive session, and I know the board was interested in trying to get public input about the annex. So I believe what we were thinking about doing was to hold a special meeting one night, or a special public forum, for lack of a better word, and make a brief factual presentation about the building and the property and where it's located and some of the easements that exist or that could be considered. Some of the things that we've looked at previously internally, but the public hasn't seen, and to solicit input before ultimately the board makes a decision about what it wants to do with the annex.
Yeah.
And
So we're just trying to find a
I
time.
think we're just trying to figure out what timing, and I put photocopies of a couple of calendars or months in your packet, and tried to mark down the meetings that we know we're having, and then a couple that we think we're having. For example, the one on the 17th that we talked about earlier. We're also planning on a wastewater meeting, although that's not at night and it's not really open to the public, but that's going to be a most of the day event at the end of October. And then I know we've talked about a tentative date for a special town meeting that we probably want to nail down next month, if that's what we're going to do. And I know there's a couple things we're going to talk about shortly that are important. So I don't know if the board has a preference on a week, or I know, we've talked internally with staff about, what we'd like to include in a brief presentation, with some visuals just so the public can see.
Is it too much to do before one of our meetings? Do you want to do it standalone?
You could probably do that depending if you want it late afternoon or early evening, yeah.
guess it's the same idea, but I was looking at the 10th
September.
for a forum, and then it could be on our agenda for the 12th,
Yeah?
rather than conflate the two items by doing them both on the same day. Was what's going on in my head.
It's fine.
Any
Yeah.
other thoughts?
Gives them some time to think about it.
Well, yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar.
We'll double check with what boards might, as you know, there've been a couple of regulatory boards that have been meeting up here for bigger issues, but we can find a location, I'm sure. So shoot for the 10th?
Yeah.
Okay.
What time? 7? That late?
Yeah, evening, yeah. I think that's fair to everyone.
7. 7?
7.
The 10th at 7 PM, right?
Yeah. That swan drives that dog crazy every night.
Okay. Hopefully, we can make that work and move on with it. A potential town meeting, November 18th.
I was going to say, I think the date is almost a no-brainer because it's between Veterans Day and avoids Thanksgiving week. So it's the Monday between those two holidays. I think, not to speak for everyone, but I believe everyone's especially committed to the 3 wastewater articles, 2 of which are quite substantive. One about the 1% increase in the surcharge for the WIF. That, by law, would then require a public election vote the following May. So that's why it's important to vote it now, because if we waited till May, we couldn't have it at that election. We'd have to wait or call for a special election, and those can get expensive. And then also to transfer any balance in the WIF to appropriate for our ongoing wastewater work. It's just been invaluable to have that money, even though we're really careful on what we spend it on, just to be able to sort of go with the flow as we found out these issues with the school department and trying to get waivers on Oak Ridge and Forestdale. I mean, if and when those 2 things get approved by the state, like there's enough money for us to just implement those changes, which will really take some headaches off the school's plate. So it'd be nice to help them out. And then I'll touch on the articles up above. I know we've talked, the school is interested, in light of the additional Chapter 70 funds, to increase their operating budget appropriation by the difference, which I believe, I'd have to go back and check, I think it's about $160,000, and they would have no problem if the vote, focused it on the internal maintenance of their school buildings. That's what they'd like to use it for. And then I know it's not good to have authorized debt just sitting out there, and so it has been recommended that we rescind our prior approval to issue debt for the CPA disposition of the wing school. We did not have to spend that money, or we spent the money, but we had it in cash. We didn't have to borrow. So we should rescind the authority to borrow. And then lastly, there's a couple of capital items that have come to our attention. Still trying to find out more about those. If they sort of pass muster and we think they make sense, we would run those by the board, the finance committee, and the CIPC, just to see how that would work. And that's about it, but especially the wastewater ones,
Yeah.
I think we need to pull the Band-Aid to be able to consider it for next May. But probably no need to vote on the date, but I mean, maybe we can talk at our next meeting to try to take a vote, maybe just to set it. That way we can start getting things together.
I appreciate the concept, and anything else that we can have to flesh out the agenda of articles.
Yeah.
Maybe in our next couple of meetings, we can,
Just, the two capital items on our side that we've talked about a little and we want to find out more is, if you remember, we appropriated money to hire an architect and a project manager for the work on this building and the front of the Sandwich Hollows Golf Course, but we didn't appropriate the money to do the work at the front of the Sandwich Hollows Golf Course on the wall that's having, just some minor structural issues compared to what we had to do in the back. So that vote would be helpful. And then it's come to our attention, the ongoing work for the Jones Road culvert. If you remember, that's a really significant federal grant we received, over $750,000. But the deal is we have to pay for all the engineering, which we had paid for quite a bit of that. Because of the complexities of some of the issues that have been raised, the state and federal regulatory groups want us to do more engineering and studies of it. So we're waiting on a number of what that would be, but where we're getting multiple times of what we're spending, it still would make sense to keep that project rolling.
Isn't that just the culvert?
You'd be surprised. They have to, measure the volume of water, and it's being lifted. I mean, the road is being raised. They could have avoided certain regulatory requirements if they did two next to each other of the same size, because once you exceed a certain size, you have to go to higher level. They said, no, you can't do it, you have to do the big one. So I think that's what the extra engineering's for, is paying for the,
Bridge.
it's basically a bridge, yep.
Short one, too. There's not much drainage from one end of that.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Dukes of Hazzard in the car.
and I'm sorry, whose concerns were these?
The federal and state regulators we've been working with.
Gotcha.
The group's been meeting very regularly, not
There's no
just occasionally.
opportunity, I'm assuming, to go back and get
Yeah.
the grant expanded to cover.
They don't pay for the engineering, they just pay for the actual work. So,
It's lovely to reinvent the wheel, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
and then I know we've been speaking with the school department, they may have an issue too, so.
Okay, so we'll look at this
Yeah,
another couple of times.
2 weeks, yeah, yep.
Okay. Anybody else on that one?
Yeah.
Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chairman? I have none. New business, boardwalk ceremony with Lieutenant Governor, August 28th at 11:30 p.m., not at 11:30 p.m., yeah, that'd be cool, 1:30 p.m.
I thought I was going to get out of this without a mic. No, this is actually something that Bud and I have been working on for several months, really trying to find a way to elevate the ribbon cutting and recognition of the reopening of the boardwalk. And we'd reached out to both the climate chief, Melissa Hoffer, and to Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll back in July. May have been even June, but we've been working on this for a little bit. And just heard last week that the Lieutenant Governor is interested in coming down and helping us celebrate the reconstruction of the boardwalk. She gave us one date, and we jumped on it, accepted immediately. Honestly, not 5 minutes earlier. We didn't expect to hear back from either the climate chief or the Lieutenant Governor. We'd reached out to the executive director of the Cape Cod Commission to talk with us about the importance of, designing for community as well as for resiliency. So she will be speaking as well. We were lucky enough to, we wanted to have a real community focus, so we've got Dean Coe, who will come and speak as well, both, his experience. He says he's not an actual geezer in the Geezer Brigade. He was a fundraiser, but he'll talk about that process years ago, really making the connection there. And then Charlie will make a few comments, and we were hoping that another board member who has had some experience with the boardwalk would be willing to talk and close out the comments for the town. And honestly, there's couple of members we could think of that would fit that bill, and wanted to ask if any of you would be willing to do that.
Well, the most important thing is, Heather, you have to check the tide chart.
It's low tide.
It's
Sam
high
checked.
tide at 1:30.
It's low tide at 1. Yeah, we looked. We looked.
Too bad.
I think that was strategic on their behalf.
Fine job.
Sam got back to me right away with the tides.
Low tide.
Yes.
Bud and Heather would have had to jump off.
Yeah.
That would be.
Should I put my plug in? So, certainly Shane had a huge role in helping us, particularly with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is ultimately not required, but it went on for months, and helping us through some of these processes. But also, Patrick has had some experience. And, Bud and I were chatting and thought the two of you could probably do a pretty darn funny tag team if you were both willing to do so.
Do one of those,
I really, honestly, we think there would be a lot of richness there. So if you'd be willing to do that, we'd put you both on. The speakers are limited to 2 minutes apiece, so we might be willing to give you 4. 2 each.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, they could have the minute I don't use.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be some fun to be had.
Okay.
Patrick said he was game when I talked to him.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it should be a great event, very low-key. And if any of you have heard the Lieutenant Governor speak, she's just a huge supporter of local government. We're all big fans and really delighted to have her come down.
Right. Hey, it's a fine job. There's nothing bad to say. It all worked out well.
And the press is going to be invited, right?
We have a big press packet ready to roll, just waiting for the names on the last speakers.
Does JJ have one of those big air pillow, read?
Low tide. Punctured by the clams.
Yeah. All right. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chairman.
Hey, Charlie, can I mention,
Please.
one thing I should have mentioned either in my report earlier or when Marie Buckner, the HR director, was here, we've been blown away. There have been so many ripple effects of, people leaving, people taking another job internally, and then it creates, then that position's filled, and then that person's backfilled. I mean, there's literally been, I think, between mid-June and now, dozens of positions that have either been filled, advertised, all the new positions that were voted at town meeting. Literally, efforts have been made on every single one of them, with several of them filled. A couple of those people starting on Monday. And so all that has been a lot of work, and they've really, especially Marie and Tara Way, our assistant HR director, have done an incredible job with all that. And then one of the other things, if you remember, is got extra money for flexibility. And one of the things that we've talked about at our meetings at different times is, the whole thing about a DPW director / town engineer. And we think we're big enough now, we should probably have a separate town engineer and just do a DPW director. So long story short, just working with Marie and internally, we've revised some job descriptions. So, Sam Jensen, who has full certification, is going to become the town engineer in a couple weeks. And Paul's title will change from DPW director / town engineer to just DPW director, but he's still responsible for overseeing that division. But it's just something that I think was a long time coming, and without the support from the board and the finance committee and the public to get some of this done, it's really been positive. And I would say, of the newer positions that we identified, a vast majority have been filled. If they haven't, it's been because we haven't found the right people to fill them. One that we did talk about more internally a couple times is the social worker position in the police department. It's so important. So we ran the ad, interviewed several people. Long story short, by the time we got down, some people backed out, some people explained why. Marie interviewed some of the people that we liked and what would make it different. And so we actually totally redid the job description between HR and the police department and some other departments, including Susan Moranchik and others who will work with this position and the school. And that was just re-advertised today. So there's certain licensure designations, and if you don't have like literally a certain initial, you have to be overseen by someone else who has that initial. And so we've rerun the ad, changed what we're focusing on, and then increased the pay slightly. So we'll see how that goes. But everyone's been really helpful just trying to find the best way to make that work. And I can't think of a town department that couldn't, at one time or another, use that position just for some advice, including the school. So just want to let you know, like, all that stuff's been going on for months. So it's
Very
good.
complex, and
Yep.
rightfully so.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
You're the lone survivor. You have anything you'd like to say this evening?
Closing remarks. We have to keep praying. Let us please continue to maintain those under attack in Eastern Europe, the conflict in the Middle East, and the overall threats to world peace in our thoughts and prayers. Anybody else? Okay. The chair declares that having an open session may have a detrimental effect upon the town's bargaining, litigating, or negotiating position as applicable. Combined purposes 6 and 3. Purpose 6, to consider the purchase of real property. And the chair declares that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, acquisition of real property. Purpose number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, as an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Do I hear a motion, please?
Motion, we enter executive session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. Miller. We will not be returning to open session. Our next open session is scheduled for Thursday, September 12th, 2024, at 7 p.m. here in Historic Town Hall. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.